First and foremost, I want to thank God for all the talents I got. It's only because of you, man. All perfect gifts, all good and perfect gifts come from the Lord, the Father of life. Message. Lord knows that I'm heaven sent. Thank God for the future, past, and the present tense. It's newfound love for my Father God. Got the devil tense, and I've been dodging bullets and crosses. I know the devil sin, I've been watching him ever since. This love and this mercy, this grace he gave me was evident. My soul belonged to God, ain't no selling it. Plus your boy a star. The devil can't ride with the door jar. Demons, they trying to stop me. Throw me off, angels watching, I know they are, huh? They say the door's locking. I serve a God that's like a pop lock service, but he more righteous and even more popping. So if the door's closed, then it's more options or something better. Trusting God more than ever. Trust God, ain't nothing better. Gimme, see, gimme. They got his neck broke. Sometimes less is more, so I pray that you pray for less folks.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is Drake Reed. I'm here with my boy Jamal Richardson, and we're starting this new podcast for Christian Athletes Worldwide Alliance. We're going to be getting down to a lot of the athletic discussions that we have on the Christian, from the Christian standpoint, and applying God's principles to our day-to-day lives as athletes. So I just want to give it up to my boy Jamal. Go ahead and let him know who you are.
Man, what's going on, y'all? Jamal Richardson, man, JMR Basketball. Man, excited to be here from Nashville, Tennessee, man. That's my guy, my brother Drake just mentioned, man. We here, man, just to bring and share the gospel, man, and also, man, just bringing all things together, just for real life situations and events that happens to athletes, man. So we just want to bring a clear perspective. Obviously, man, we speaking from experience, but more importantly, man, we want to make sure that we just getting information out based on what the Lord wants everybody to hear, man. So excited about it, man. Ready to pour out into you, and man, let's just get rolling. Let's get to it.
Man, well, first thing, the big topic for today, we're going to discuss. The Lord has put it on my heart the last 2 or 3 months. I've been contacted by several ministers and pastors, and a lot of my friends that are in ministry. And this question keeps coming up over and over again: is how can an athlete abstain from sex prior to marriage, or even not step out of their marriage? With all of the attention we get as athletes. So we're going to start with that. What's your take on it, Jamal?
Man, I think, man, just from the beginning of it, man, I think that's something that starts with culture, man. I think a lot of the sexual impurity, everything that kind of comes with the attachment of being an athlete, right? You know, the attention, the notoriety, the fame, the fortune, just there's a lot that comes with that. And so, man, I think we have in our culture, especially with athletics, sex is pretty much a routine thing. You know what I mean? And it kind of comes with that price tag. You know what I mean? And so I don't think it's anything where it hasn't really been addressed. It's kind of been one of those things, man. You kind of just go with the flow, like it is what it is type thing. So I think, man, what we're trying to do, man, is really just bring that truth, that true perspective with it, like not avoiding it, of course, because it's a real issue, it's a real thing. But also, too, man, not sweeping it under the rug and kind of just making it feel like it's part of like the everyday normal day thing for an athlete. You know what I'm saying? So we want to be different in our approach. You know what I mean? So I think it's really big and it's very prevalent, very prominent. And we a lot of people talk about it, but man, now like really getting into the crevices of what that really looks like. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important that we really do address that, though, for sure.
I think, for us coming up, because we really at that midway point where we're still somewhat young adults, but we're not necessarily old yet. And so we at that right balance to where I understand the young guys that's, high school, college age, because I played professionally with a lot of high school and college age guys that's in that age bracket. And so now, recollecting, when we were kids, how things were as compared to now. So we right at that midway point. And I think the thing that our older folks get wrong with us that could have been better is they told us not to do things, but they didn't explain why not to do things.
Facts,
Now we're seeing the issues of not explaining why you shouldn't do A, B, and C. And so now the younger folks, they're so far gone, they're so far removed to where everything is normalized. Like when we were kids, I mean, it's still people that did all types of wild stuff, and having sex before they should have, and going behind their parents' backs and things like that. But it seemed like it was more like you had to sneak and do it.
Yeah.
But
Facts.
now it's just like, a lot of folks, they folks cool with it, you
Yeah.
know. So it's been a degeneration of ethics and moral codes, across the board. So I think that's the big issue now. And most families are just not having that sex talk at an early age. And I always tell parents, man, no matter what you believe, okay, your kid that's 14 or 15-year-old that's an athlete, especially if they're really good, I don't care if it's basketball, football, baseball, they're leaving home a lot earlier than somebody else. And they have more visibility. So because they're more visible, you don't have the luxury of like telling them when they're an adult. You can't be like, oh, I'm gonna tell you when you get older. Now you better tell them right now
Right
because
now.
they're gonna be out of your good grade. They're gonna be out of your house much sooner than somebody else. And not just out of your house. It's gonna be all types of people on top of them that you're not aware of. So they got to have that talk early. So what's your take? Like, what are some things that you feel like could prevent, or prepare someone for the world that they're about to enter into in sports,
Man,
in that aspect?
yeah, I think, man, going back to what you mentioned earlier, man, about having a conversation with athletes at an earlier age. I know there's a bit of innocence that comes with it. You want to try to protect them from it, but the truth of the matter is, I mean, especially with the digital world and the digital age where we're in now with social media, and like it's athletes are able to get access to it a lot faster, a lot earlier, right? So I think, man, sitting down and having that conversation, which you touched on earlier, just you got to be able to expose it to them. Obviously, spoon feed it. Be very mindful and wise about how you had that conversation. But the most important thing is you can't hide it from them. You know what I mean? And so, you look at kids, man, that are getting pregnant at 12, 13, 14 years old. So that, man, that seed has been planted early, and it's all driven based on what culture has been feeding into these athletes, what culture has been feeding into their minds. So I think having that conversation early. I think another thing too, man, it just really being having that safe space of vulnerability. I think some athletes may want to they need that outlet. They need someone to be able to go to and say, hey, look, I'm kind of struggling with this. When it comes to his attention, Coach Reed, like, man, I'm getting a lot of attention from women, man, and I'm really falling into it, and I really don't know, how to handle that. So I think, man, giving the athletes a personal, safe space for them to be able to be vulnerable, right? And so we can't always be, just drill it, drill it, drill it, drill it, drill it. I think we got to also understand we got to learn how to meet them where they at. Like we mentioned, like, really, listen, we both were there at one point in time in our lives, right? So we understand how it looks. We understand what it means. So, giving them the space where they can be vulnerable, giving them the space where they can be honest and transparent. And then according to the information that's given to us, now we can be able to nurture them. Now we can be able to kind of guide them and lead them. Now, I think also, and I'm going to pass it back to you, I think also, too, is just making sure we let the athlete know, look, our job is to simply give, we're gonna help guide you and lead you. We're gonna give you the information, but at the end of the day, you gotta understand that the decision is still yours, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's no different from going to the gym if you putting in work and, some days you feel like practicing, some days you don't. But that's a choice that you have to be prepared, to answer to. You got to be prepared for the consequences that come along with that, right? So I think helping them understand that, look, we're here as a resource, utilize us, make sure that you're getting everything that you need. But at the end of the day, it's still your decision, right? And so let's make sure you understand what you're getting into, why you're getting into it, and making sure we got a plan in place to help you be able to make the best decision, which is not put you in situations where you're going to be held in captivity and bondage. You know what I'm saying?
Saying it's so valid. I'm gonna touch on this one point, and then we're gonna get into some solutions. The one thing that came to mind as you was talking is when we're younger and we first start really talking to different type of females, or for a woman, talking to men, you think that folks is like 10 years older than you or 20 years older than you that know the game. You think they lame. Like, man, they lame, man. They some suckers, man. They
Yeah,
like they just old. They don't know what they're talking about, and they didn't have this type of attention or whatever, right? Meanwhile, you still doing dumb stuff and you getting bound. And how do we know this? Because we did it.
yeah,
That's so
right.
not listening to folks that's older is really a detriment. But I think the biggest issue that what I notice is, when you need someone that actually played at a good level that's like 5 or 10 years older than you that's doing right, because that's really who you're looking at anyway. And if they're whatever example they're giving, that's what you kind of, it's like they say, like, if you want to play at the next level, you got to find someone's game that's like yours and mimic their game.
Yeah.
You're looking at that off the court as well. So you really need there needs to be more prominence, more Christian athletes that's actually speaking up, letting people know that they're Christians first and foremost, and then practicing what they preach. But I would say one of the first solutions that I could think of as far as abstaining and being able to last a longer period of time, to going towards marriage, I think the number one thing is they have to have an established relationship with God.
Yeah.
You have Christ. That has to be first and foremost, because without that foundation, you don't even really believe in it. You have no conviction.
Yeah.
You I be convicted of something if I don't know Christ, and not just being baptized, not just going to church, but like I'm really praying, I'm really talking to him, I'm really reading the word. And because without that, you're not really even, you get approached by the wrong person, or you get in a scenario where something could go down, and it's like there's no resistance because you don't feel no conviction.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, I think that's the basic starting point for it's really just holiness, and an emphasis on that on a consistent basis. What you think?
No, absolutely, man. You just hit it right on the head. I think before you can come to a solution and finding and trying to measure what you need to do, it all starts, like you talked about, starts with submission. It's like, what are you submitting yourself to? You know what I mean? And there's only two sides. We know there's only two sides to this game. It's either God or Satan, right? So I think, man, you hit it beautifully on the head about having that place of submission. And then I really want to preface this: true submission, because there's a lot. I like to use this. There's a lot of people that are fans of Jesus, but there are few followers of Jesus, right? So you have people that are fans that they love to use Jesus as convenience, right? Use it as an accessory. You know what I'm saying? Hey, look, I got a cross in my bio, right? You know what I'm saying? I wear a Jesus hoodie. You know what I'm saying? I got a Bible scripture in my on my tatted on me and all so on and so forth, right? Got the cross tatted on me, but are you really, really being a follower, right? Do you really understand what it means to be a disciple? Do you really understand what it means to be a servant? You know what I'm saying? To be a slave of Christ. You know what I'm saying? So I think, man, having like true submission of following Christ, that's where it's got to definitely start. And I think then from that point, then you started really we dive into the book, right? Dive into the word. Now you start to dive and really understand, okay, here's the playbook. Okay, now what it means for me to, to be submissive to God. Okay, I got to understand who He is,
Yeah.
right? I can know all the plays, but if I don't understand my coach, how can I be able to go out and execute and be able to see things and be able to decipher things if I'm not understanding who my coach is? So a lot of people can have, you know, we can have reference of the word. We can know the word like the front and back of our hand. The Pharisees knew the word like the front and back of their hand, right? But they didn't have the relationship. They didn't have that personal connection. So understand who your coach is, man. So and God is our coach. Jesus Christ is our coach. So like you talked about, taking the time to pray, taking the time to meditate in the word, taking the time to really be still, knowing and understanding who He is, like searching for His face and not just His hand. You know what I mean? So I think by going that route, it really does help us to be able to go into those next steps. And I'm gonna pass it back to you, man. What's some other things you think goes along with that?
Well, the one thing I wanted to clear up before we go any further is when you said meditate. I want everyone to understand that meditation is not the Hindu or the yoga way of
Good. Yeah.
meditation. Is just like you focusing on the word, like you reading your scriptures and you dwelling on it for a period of time to really, ask the Holy Spirit, like, hey, what you really showing me here, God? Like, how does this apply to me, right now? Because I thought for a minute, I got caught up in it. I was like, man, I'm thinking yoga meditation. I'm in here
Yeah.
and all this stuff, not realizing that I'm being bound, because that's another spiritual system. So a lot of people don't really believe that. You could believe what you want to believe, but you could find yourself in the church, man, flat on your back, getting delivered if you could.
Back.
So if you do, I would advise you as a Christian man or woman to go ahead and renounce that and repent of it in the name of Jesus. But moving on, I think well, to go on what you were talking about is is the psalm that comes to my mind is Psalm 119:11, and it states, "I've hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you." So if the word is hidden in your heart, so when you like a high school age and even college age, you still a very very young person that's impressionable. So
Right.
when you have to be ingrained in Christ, or know Christ and stuff. You really have to be trained, just like you were an athlete being trained. So you didn't just wake up and be able to dribble with both hands. You didn't just wake up and be able to shoot from three and understand the plays and all that stuff. You really have to have someone train you. And
Right.
the issue that I've seen and that I remember, because I look back, I'm like, man, how could I have avoided a lot of the stuff that I went through? And I think that if I was at like 14, 15, that age brain, if I would have had someone that like a mentor. So we say mentors, but you really need a personal pastor. Okay.
Yeah.
Available. Just like you have a skills coach, you're working on your game. Like you can go to practice every day, but if you're the slowest person on the team and all you do is go to practice, you ain't getting no faster, and you still the slow. You got to put in that extra time. So you got to have somebody that has the time, that's a minister, a pastor, a man or woman of God, a spiritual mother, spiritual father, someone like that in your teenage years, because that's really the person that's going to be able to take you over the top, because you're going to be able to talk to them more often than you can go to church, then you can go to Bible study, then you can go to small groups. Like a lot of places you go, they don't even have no small group for singles. And especially, and then those single small groups, they're not for necessarily teenagers or college age people a lot of times. And
Right.
you might be blessed to where you go to a Christian university or something like that, but most people don't go to Christian universities. And a lot of times those things are frowned upon. So I think that the earlier the better, but then you also have the folks that you have to corral them in because they're coming into Christ later. Like I didn't come into Christ, I was 20. I didn't
That's
get
it.
so we would go to church every blue moon, but it wasn't like it was like a major necessity or something like that. So what ends up happening is you get caught up in the worldly things, okay, which is only natural because you're not really being taught how to live Christ-like. You're
Yeah.
not emphasize that to you on a daily basis. And in America, you can be shielded a bit more from those things because we are still a Christian country, even though we're not as far along as we once were. You can
Mhm.
still get protected by the ministers and the pastors that live in your neighborhood that you're not aware of because they're praying for their neighborhood to be protected. You still being protected a bit from the churches and things that's surrounding your community because they're saying prayers for that community. But at the end of the day, for your own personal holiness, your own personal abstinence, you need to be getting trained on the importance of that, and then even to go a step further, which what I'm moving into next is your actual role as the man or the woman in the relationship. So what's
Yeah. Man, listen, that's something that's definitely a hot button. I know that's talked about quite a lot in today's climate. Just understanding the roles and responsibilities of a man and a woman, right? Biblically, though, I think that's very important. Of course, um, the man is designed to lead, and lead not in a means of just dominance and dictatorship, but more so again is this was a role that was given to by God, when He first made Adam and Eve. I think understanding the roles and responsibilities that you talked about is very important. One thing that a team can't do, a team cannot be functional. A team can't win if you get outside your role, right? Drake, I know when you was at Austin P, you were the guy. You know what I'm saying? Player of the year. I mean, just amples of accolades, right? My role was a little bit different. I was more of a, traditional point guard. I wasn't asked to score. My job was simply to play defense, assist, keep the tempo and the speed of the game going, and just make the offense run, be the straw that makes the drink stir, right? But understanding, man, if I got outside my role, you got outside your role, our team wasn't going to be successful.
right?
Period. You know what I'm saying? And then there were moments when you, as the go-to guy, if you didn't have it going scoring wise, you were probably asked to do a little bit more in other aspects and areas, right? And then you had a team that picked up your slack if you had a rough shooting night. And there would be moments where I had to step up and had to be a little bit more aggressive offensively in order to pick up the slack in the role, right? So I think, man, when it comes to a man and a woman in a relationship, I think understanding, man, is not about competing against each other. I think we have to make sure that we are taking that divisiveness of, a man competing against a woman, or a woman competing against a man. A woman now, in today's climate, has taken on that gesture of being independent and having to carry that role and responsibility of being a mom and being a dad, or so on and so forth, right? And it's also this notion that I don't need a man in order to survive. And that's very, I think that's very, very, very uh, slight. I think it's very, 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 cunning of Satan to be able to utilize that to make women feel empowered to where they should overpower a man. And on the flip side of that, for us as men, especially godly men, like, we have failed in our role and responsibility on doing what God has called us to do, right? Which is to we have dominion over the world. Our job is to protect and to nurture and to work the land with our hands, and making sure that we're doing what we need to do to lead our women and lead our children back to God, and making sure we're all in cohesiveness. You know what I'm saying? So, man, understanding your role, man, is so important, because if you don't understand your role as a man, let's just talk about for single athletes, or as a woman, if you don't understand your role in your individuality, then it's going to be hard for you to understand how you need to move accordingly in order to save yourself for your wife, or save yourself for your husband. You know what I'm saying? So you really got to sit down, and you got to go and really understand, okay, what does it mean to be a man? Not by the standard of the world. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a man of God? What does it mean to be a woman of God? Not by the standards of the world. Well, it doesn't mean that you go out here and as a woman, you showing the whole world everything on the gram, right? Or you're revealing yourself, and you're giving so much of yourself to so many men in so many different ways. As a man, it's not designed for us to go out here and see how many people we can sleep with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we're getting a falsified trophy from that. Right? So, man, understanding the discipline of what it means to be a man and a woman according to the word. You know what I mean? So that's kind of just where my thoughts kind of flow with that.
I think what you're saying is so on point, and I'm going to use some of the passages from my book. So this is Christian Athletes versus the World. This is volume 2.
Make sure y'all go cop that, man. Make sure y'all go get that for sure. Go cop that. Need that.
If you don't have it, I suggest you get it right away, because it covers a lot of these things, and there's actually a chapter on dating that I'm going to refer to, and this is the chapter that the pastors had the most to say about. I interviewed 16 pastors, and so one of the scriptures that came up that really that I learned this in one of my men small groups was from Genesis 2:15 from the Amplified version. So the Lord took the man he had made and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and keep it. So right away, it just lets you know that your man, as the man in the relationship, you're supposed to cultivate and keep. So cultivate the person, build your woman up. Teach her what you know. Teach her the ways of God. You're supposed to keep her. You're supposed to protect her. You're supposed to provide for her. You're supposed to have provide the home and the safety. For that woman to be able to be there and be the helpmate that you need. So that's first and foremost. Your role as a man is to cultivate and keep. And so, what does that mean to you, bro?
Man, cultivating and keeping. Man, you genuinely you're working, right? So to cultivate, my bad, my fault. So to cultivate, to cultivate means you're growing. That means your job is to go out and work. Your job is to go out and build. Your job is to go out and you're creating infrastructure and putting your family, putting your wife, or putting your kids in position for them to have a strong foundation to be able to not only sustain in the current times, but you want to use that to sustain for generations to come, right? And that's the keeping part. So whatever it is that you are building and cultivating, you want to make sure that you're able to sustain and keep that. So that way, when you're done, when your lifespan is up, now your kids have something to have foundation pieces on. And then that's how we create the generational wealth. You know what I'm saying? I know we talk about that a lot, right? The generational wealth, not only just finance, but generational wealth spiritually, generational wealth emotionally, generational wealth physically, right? So leaving those things and putting those things and having those things in place where you are able to use the talents and the gifts that God has given you, and you're building your foundation, you're building your family up to glorify Him, and then now as you reap the benefits of it, now you're able to be a sower, you'll be able to do so many great things, but more importantly, it's passed down. You know what I mean? It's passed down to now you're passing it down to your kids, or you're passing it down to your wife, and now they're able to utilize what you've built by God, from God, and be able to go bless and go spread seeds and go be fruitful and multiply in a multitude of ways. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of just where I'm at with that.
Yeah, no doubt, man. What you're saying is so important, man. And it's vital to learn that as soon as possible, so that
Right.
you back, and then you out here and you done already dated quite a few. Man, you got to reel it back in. But you got to start where you got to start as well.
No
Um,
doubt.
so this is from what I've been taught as well. For the women's side, and this kind of has both the male and the females portion in it. So this is from Ephesians 22 through 27.
Mhm.
Let's see. Wives, understand and support your husbands in ways that show your support for Christ. The husband provides leadership to his wife the way Christ does his church, not by domineering, but by cherishing.
Mm.
The church submits to Christ as he exercises such leadership. Wives should likewise submit to their husbands. Husbands, go all out in your love for your wives, exactly as Christ did for the church, a love marked by giving, not getting. Christ's love makes the church whole. His words evoke her beauty. Everything he does and says is designed to bring the best out of her, dressing her in dazzling white silk, radiant with holiness.
Mm.
So right there, man, it just shows like the balance, that's really like the foundation of how this whole thing works. And I think when just from my reading that, especially being a few years older than what we used to be in our culture,
Yeah.
everything I don't need no man for this, or I don't need that, or I'm intermittent. I got my own money and all that type of stuff. But what happens is, especially because I'm 37, you 36 or 37?
Yeah. 37. Yeah.
37. So once we start getting to this age, it's like everyone that was talking like that is starting to backpedal back to what God is talking about, because it's not so easy doing that on your own.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
but the main thing is a lot of men are not living up to that standard. So
Right.
that make it easy for that woman to be the helpmate. That doesn't make it easy for her to lay her hair down and just be chill on that aspect. So it's like you have to be exemplifying being a cultivator and a keeper for her to be able to do that. So and otherwise the respect level is not at the level that it needs to be for that to happen, man. What you think about that?
Absolutely, man. I think you hit it right on the head, man. So before us as men, before we get to doing the name pointing and our name blaming and pointing the finger, man, we gotta remember that some of those fingers are pointing right back at us. You know what I mean? And so I think us taking responsibility and taking accountability. One thing is men, man, we have to take accountability, man. So a lot of these positions that we've put our women in is for the simple fact that we have not stepped up and we have not taken ownership of the responsibilities that in the things that God has appointed and given us, right? So I think, man, before we can even, start to even, um, divvy into, helping our women and so on and so forth, man. Like we need to make sure, man, we looking ourselves in the mirror. It goes back to the famous story in Genesis, right, with Adam and Eve and Eve, listen to the serpent, listen to Satan, and she was deceived by Satan and got Adam to eat the apple. Well, Adam got the first command from God anyway, right? So if Adam would have stuck to what God had told her, what God had told him, his job was to protect Eve from being deceived. But
Yeah.
instead, he fell short of his responsibility. So I know people like to point the blame at Eve, but nah, let's take it. Let's point the blame at Adam. You know what I'm saying? Because Adam had the first command from God, right? And then Adam's responsibility was to watch out and take care of Eve in that moment. So I think for us, man, we need to, as men, I think this is so important, man. Why you and I are doing this, And also too, man, in the circles that we're in the basketball space and football space and just sports period, like we have to be able to have these heart to heart and real conversations. And we got to understand what that looks like. And just in regards to discipline, right? And I'm going to revert to Hebrews 12:6. And it says, my son, do not take the Lord's discipline lightly or faint when you are reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and punishes every son whom he receives. So that discipline that comes from the Lord, man. So with us not taking on our responsibility, like I like to look at that discipline as it means like, man, you know what? You got to take this on the chin. But now it's time to get back in the gym. It's time to get back to work. It's time to get back into the weight room. It's time to get back to. You got to eat that loss. You got to eat. You got to eat it. You got to let that just sit in your spirit. You got to let that just kind of marinate on you a little bit because you need my correction. Because if you're blinded by what you can't see, you're gonna fall into a deeper trap. You're gonna fall into a deeper depth, right? So, man, the discipline that the Lord has given us as men, and what we've had to, what we had to take on the chin, and what we had to be accountable for, man, let's look at that as an act of love by God, because God sees and He knows who we are called to be. You talked about it, man, before we started the pod, man. Just our birthright, our God-given natural birthright, right? The will that He had in place before we got caught into the depths of sin, right? So, man, understanding that, men, we got to make sure before we do this and before we do that, let's look at ourselves in the mirror. Let's hold each other accountable. So make sure you get a group, be a part of a male group or a group of guys that's walking the same walk as you. That's trying to pursue and run after Christ every single day. You know what I'm saying? No days off. Because the moment we start doing that and the moment we start walking into and truly accepting our role, women are going to feel more safe to be submissive. And they're going to feel safer about, man, you know what? I have a man that I can trust that will lead me. You know what I'm saying? Because women, the reason why women they have this wall up and this protective shield up is because they feel like they can't be led. I really believe this, Drake. And I want you to get your thoughts on this. The strongest woman in the world wants to be led by a man, without question. I truly think in my heart of hearts, the most dominant woman you could think of, and shouldn't even be a conversation, but the most dominant, the most revering, the most prideful woman that you can think. I think a small part of her, deep down, if we look at the core of it, deep down, wants to be led and wants to be led accordingly. But the reason why though that firewall is up is because she's only been accustomed to doing what she needs to do to survive. And there's life experiences that she may have that gone through that has put her in those places and positions, right? And this is not absolving women from any responsibility as well, because they play a role too. Again, decisions of guys who you dealing with, right? Like who you allowing to have access to you, who you giving your body to, who you even giving your time to, right? So women got to take accountability for that as well. But I really think, man, that true women, that true women that really, really, really seek and desire marriage and that want the companionship, I think they truly want to be led. And I think they get tired. I think they get fatigued on having to put up that wall and say, I got it. I got to figure it out. I don't need, because listen, bro, it gets tired. You can be 40, 45, 50 years old saying, hey, I'm independent, I'm successful, I got all this, but you don't have anybody to share it with.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, I think what you're talking about is on point. I mean, a lot of it is just that shield is up because of the pain, because
Yeah.
of somebody done put them through or they put themselves through, and it's just it hasn't been allowed to heal to the proper extent. But what you're talking about, I think I had a perfect example growing up, because man, my mother, she has 3 master's degrees.
Mm-hmm.
She engineer for fighter jets. She's always been tremendously successful and was even like one of the top engineers in the country at a particular point. And then so growing up with her in my house, and then seeing how she treated my dad and how my dad was still a great leader and how she listened to him, and my dad upheld the leadership role. So growing up in a house, an environment like that, I'm used to being around a woman that is strong and that's powerful and that's intelligent and stuff, with a library of books that's read all types of stuff and that's really on point. So to grow up in an environment like that, I really had a great example from my parents. And then, they've been married for over 40 years. So that's really what I'm accustomed to being around. So I understand what you're saying, and I think I had a blueprint of what it looks like. So that was a blessing for me.
For sure.
Moving on.
Hey, but real quick, Dre, I want to throw this at you too, man, because I know we talk about the aspect of from the context from a woman's point of view, but I want to get your thoughts on this, man. Like, why is it, or what do you believe are some of the things that have conditioned our hearts as men, especially let's go like particularly athletes, right? Because one of the things that why, okay, hey, Dre, Jamal, I understand what y'all saying, man. Y'all telling us this, and this, but you got to understand too, bro. Like a lot of these women can't be trusted. You know what I'm saying? And when I do, expose myself, when I try to be real, and I try to be transparent, like I get burned by it. So the only thing I do know is the only thing I do trust in what I do know is to just run through these women and just, and I got the power, I got everything that come along with it because I want to keep my wall up because I just don't trust women. So man, you being a professional athlete, man, and you, like I said, you play at the highest level, man. You played professional overseas for many, many years, and you were very successful at that. So what was that like? I'm just two-part question. What was that like for you? And what do you think draws us as male athletes for us to have our wall up too?
I think I'm gonna answer the second question first because I think that's the first issue. The first thing is I always tell parents, whoever gets to your kid first wins. Okay, so
Oh,
most
so
of us like elementary, middle school age, and we still pretty innocent. Like, yeah, some folks that have some extreme situations, but you usually not really sexually active until you get to like that at the earliest, that middle school age or like high school. Like if you make it halfway through high school and you ain't done nothing, you really saying a lot of your athlete. Like you really saying a whole lot. In any case, man, we grew up, man. Listen, Savage Life, all I mean, I gotta keep it a thou,
yeah,
man.
you gotta keep it a bean. You gotta keep it a bean, man, for sure.
I can't remember too many songs, that I listened to, man, that didn't have some vulgar stuff about a female in it. So
Yeah,
and I think the other thing that you see a lot of women listening to that too.
that's true too.
I would say it's actually flipped. So like now the women actually rap more vulgar than the men. And back when we was younger, the men rap more vulgar than the women.
Good
So
point.
the women are rapping about now was just totally otherworldly, like nobody would ever expect something like that. So that's how far we've come in that aspect. It was really a trip for me because I would be overseas and I would never see a woman listening to something that say "be this, H that." Like I just never.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
when I saw that, I was like, "Damn, we doing something wrong back home." And I noticed the music was much different when I was in France and Italy and Australia and stuff. And so a lot of them listen to the same music, but because the language barrier is there, there's not they don't really understand it to the way that we do. So they're singing it and they're dancing and stuff to it, but they don't really have the cultural aspect of it in there because they're listening to their own language and their own TV shows, and they had that type of that type of thing being pressed on them as much. And that's not to say that they out there as like some type of saints either.
All
But
right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when I look at both sides, I think that you're actually being trained, subconsciously on a regular basis here with the music, with the television shows. Something very simple. I'll be watching like I remember I would come home in the summer and I'll turn on the TV and man it'd be a commercial, commercials on for 3 to 5 minutes in between shows. Man, I done seen 50 people that got blown up and shot and robbed and stuff all in the commercials.
Facts, nah, facts. Yeah,
I was
facts.
just like, dang, I ain't seen nothing like that, all year. And
Right.
it could be a way for you to come back to even realize that that's an issue. So another thing that I noticed when I was outside of the country is that everything is about staying together. Everything. So
Mm.
you meet a young lady and she's trying to get you to meet her family as soon as possible. She's trying to bring you around her brothers as soon as possible because she wants to know if you really hold that weight, if you really are that type of a guy, because she wants to get the input from our family members as soon as possible. Here we have all these different stages, the talking stage and this and that, and a lot of it is out of whack. Like we could talk, but we could have sex though. Okay, we
Right. Yeah.
yeah, but like all this stuff is going on, and that's really our culture that's pressing that on you. This one thing that one of my boys, man, I go to church with, his pops is a pastor, and he says this, man, it's like the dopest thing I heard, man. And I was like, dude, I needed y'all when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
He said there's four ships you on, okay?
Oh, oh, talk about it. Talk about it. Preach to him. Come on, brother. Come on. Bring
Either
it
ship,
on.
either in the friendship, and if that
Mhm.
goes well, then you move to the courtship. And if
Right.
the courtship goes well, then you can move to the relationship.
Yes, sir.
When the relationship goes well, and this is the most important one. This is how I say this is the most important. If the relationship goes well, then now you can move into the marriage ship. But
Mm.
what ship you on? And so it's so profound because when you are meeting someone and getting to know them and you dating them or whatever, that conversation is gonna come up. It's gonna come up, and you can feel it before it happens. It's like, man, I can only act stupid for another week or two, man. She trying to ask me, or vice versa. And
Right.
you got to know what ship you on. Like, are we in the friendship stage? Are we in the courtship stage? And so I think the other thing too, and this is where Christianity comes into in our walk with God, is you have
Yep.
to be in this in the Christian way. Because if
Yep.
you don't, then you're gonna go to the default of what you see and what you see on television, or what you see your brothers and sisters or people in your community doing, and they're gonna be something that's probably not godly. So
Yep.
a lot of us skip the steps. You go straight from meeting a person to the relationship in like a week. Or you go straight from meeting a person to the bedroom in like a day or two. So it's like you skipping these steps when at the end of the day you're supposed to be married before you come into that type of bodily union. And
Right.
so, because what you're doing is you're sinning. That's the only sin that the Bible says you do against yourself, because you're bringing it into yourself. And
Mm.
so and that's not even to go into the spiritual ramifications of that, from that sin. And we could talk about that a little later. Uh,
So,
but yeah, man, what was the other question? I know that was the first one.
yeah. So the other question was like, how was that process for you? Just in regards of like your dating life, and what did that look like for you? In particular, when you were trying to seek, you were trying to find your way, and I know you just didn't have really had that dynamic relationship with God. And that, how does that look for you now? Now that you're on the other side of it, but how did it look for you when you was in your prime? Like when you were, you know what I'm saying? You were the guy. Like how did that look for you personally?
I think, and we're gonna touch on this a little bit later in this conversation. I think it's different levels. So you got the high school level, you got the college level, and you got the pro level. And so it's different at each stage. I think when you're at the high school level, it's probably the easiest time to corral somebody if they're doing the wrong thing, because they're still young and impressionable and they're willing to listen to you more. And they're looking for direction at their age. They haven't been totally screwed up by society yet. But I think that looking back on it, if I would have had someone that was a man of God, that was doing right and those sorts of things, that actually was working with me, I would say 2 to 3 times a week at 14 or 15 years old, I think that I wouldn't have done most of the, I wouldn't say most, there's at least, I would venture to say 30 to 50% of the things that I did, I probably wouldn't have done if I had someone that knew what you and I know now, you
Yeah,
know, back then.
question.
The only thing is it's not organized that way, because when you're an athlete, you have like a cocoon of protection around you to try to keep people from hustling you to get you to play for AAU teams and all these shoe deals and stuff, and trying to keep your mind right so that you don't get screwed up to where you miss out on scholarships. It's all this other stuff that's going on around. So it's even hard for someone like that who actually means well to get through to you, because your parents are protecting you from everybody. Your
Right.
protecting you from everybody. Your friends are protecting you from everybody. Or the people you think is your friends, are trying to keep other people from getting close to you because they want to live off your clout. It's a lot of stuff going on. So I think the earliest possible is if you can identify those Christian men and women of God, to be a spiritual mother, to be a spiritual father, someone like that from an early age. I think that's a big thing. Now, moving on to the college level. Now, here's the tricky thing, because now that I'm older, I see a lot of Christian universities and stuff. So those folks have actually a much bigger advantage, because they on campuses with chaplains and preachers and
Right.
ministers and stuff.
So,
So even though a lot of them are still probably doing the same stuff,
Yeah.
they they're more guarded and protected, and they're still growing to a certain level because they're in an environment that builds that up, that preaches that pushes that in their classrooms, that pushes that in their way of life. So you can't be a total clown and go to a Christian university and nobody gonna step to you,
Right.
but at another university where they just care if you play good and they're not really developing you like that, then the potential of those things festering and getting much worse is much higher. Now,
Right.
the thing about college that's much different than high school, well, let me take that back. If you throw prep schools, you could kind of throw prep schools in the same bag as colleges now,
Yeah.
because this is the first time in your life where you have a 90% of your team is from somewhere else. So now your teammate from California or your teammate from New York or your teammate from Georgia, okay, they've been listen to the Savage life too, and they've been living it. Okay. And
Right. Yeah.
and you love how they love how you play, like y'all balling or whatever. So y'all spending time together, y'all listening to all each other's sins and y'all and going.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
and so that is that's a whole nother ball game. That on top of your visibility level from high school to college goes to a whole nother level because when you're a kid, even if you're a national acclaimed athlete, okay, you still are a kid and you don't necessarily think too outside the box just yet. When you get to college and you have the vehicle that you probably want, now they have NIL deals and things like that. You know,
Mhm.
you're on billboards and stuff, and you on it like it's no avoiding the vultures. There's just no way.
Nah, not at all.
Every female is going to know about you. They're going, and it's a whole nother thing. And I was telling some ministers this the other day because there's a big disconnect between church people that didn't play sports that they're Christians and people that do play sports that are.
Absolutely.
And so I try to tell them, I said, listen, man, there's no hiding, okay? There's nothing that most women are not gonna know about you. They're gonna know, they're gonna watch your interviews, okay? They're gonna be studying your social media. They know who your friends are based off your social media. They got like probably like a file. Like I was even when I was in school, it was girls that would tell me like, hey man, it's women trying to get you that's plotting on this and that. And it's just like, I'm 19, I'm 20.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
just to be the best athlete or whatever. Now I still was doing some bunch of dumb stuff like most guys were because you were in college and unfortunately that's the environment that you're in. But I do think that if I had and I went to church, a good portion of college. I went to as much stuff, and I was reading my Bible, especially my junior and senior years. I was really dug in, and even had a period of time where I was abstinent during my junior year and in the beginning of my senior year. But it's like, but even with that being said, you're still in this environment in this community that is accepted to do you.
Yeah. You can't hide.
Hey, you want to drink, you want to smoke, you want to have sex, you want to do this, you want to do that, and it's really expected. And people in the church don't really think it's a big deal either, because most of them are doing it, as quiet as it's kept. So you see that as well. And then a lot of people that are in the church, they might know that you're doing the wrong thing, but they don't want to offend you because they don't want you to stop being cool with them, just like anybody else.
There we go.
Got that going on.
That's
Also, a lot of folks have church hurt. I've experienced church hurt a couple times myself, and so that can make you not go. And if you already are a person that's an athlete and you're not used to going to church all the time anyway,
yeah.
that church hurt is really going to be messed up because you're at the brunt of a lot more criticism, a lot more scrutiny. Like I tell folks all the time, man, if you work a regular job and you do something stupid, maybe four or five people know, and everyone kind of moves on. Man, you could have dropped 30. You missed the last shot of the game. Man, the whole community is on your head, man. They dogging you up, they making memes about you. They
That-
dog when you pumping gas at the gas station. You go to the movies, man, they talking bad about you, like it's just a whole different ball game. Uh so I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but as far as abstaining, I think college is actually much harder to abstain and when you're in the university level than you are in the high school and the professional level. And I say that because you can't avoid the opposite sex at all. Like you in class, they're in the dorms with you. Like everywhere you go, and it's in like a 5 to 10 mile radius, is a concentrated group of young people, and it's their first time away from their families. It's the first time that most of them have had any freedom at all, and they just wilding out.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that is the actual breeding ground for sin and foolishness. And if you can have a group of people, and I don't even think you need one. I think you need a group of Christians that's serious. And I'm sure that it exists somewhere. And I just wish that it could be replicated and duplicated on a much higher basis, because that's the area where those heartbreaks happen. To where now the woman you date, she's 27 and she's tripping with you because of what happened when she was 19. Now you're 30 years old, and because you've been led by a bunch of guys that wasn't living right, you know how to taught how to be a man by them instead of by a Christly man. Now you're not leading how you supposed to, and you can't lead your family and do your life how you supposed to when you're 30 years old. So it's a lot of that going on in that university level. Now, when I move to the professional level, the reason that I said it's much easier to not get caught up in certain things as a professional as in the university level is because, I mean, most of the days you go into practice, you go into the gym, and you got your teammates, your coaching staff, your trainers, and that's pretty much who you see the majority of the day.
Right.
Now, can you do some foolishness and get into some stuff? Yeah, of course. You're a pro. Okay. You can go, you got money, you go into all the dopest everything, okay? And so they could be checking for you, but you got to go to it, or they got to come to you. It's not like they already there in your face. So you do have a level of protection, but as a professional, it was actually much easier for me to do better in relationships and do the right thing, because one of the things that really changed me is I was around a good group of men that was not cheating, that was not doing a lot of stuff like that when I was a pro. And so it changed my mind frame about how things really should be, how things really work. So like that was not even an issue in my serious relationships as a professional athlete. Now, as far as being a Christian man and doing it the Christian way, I think that what happens is the other thing that people don't want to put into context is you are moving a lot. Okay, you're moving a lot, and now even these high school kids, they're moving a lot. They transferring 3 times, 4 times, 2 times, and so they're not just transferring like when we was kids, like you go to the high school that's 20 minutes away from your high school and you still basically in the same neighborhood. Like, no, man, you moving from Nashville to like Dallas. You moving from like Phoenix to like New York. You
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was telling some of my folks from church the other night, I'm like, man, like a lot of the stuff that is talked about as far as abstaining, you really need a ministry built around you. But I'm like, what ministry is with you when you're 14 years old? Like I left home, I was 14 to go pursue basketball in another state.
Facts.
It's guys when I became when I got to college and pro, same thing. They're leaving the different countries to come to the states, or they're
Yep.
leaving from one state to another. So, what ministry is with you? Okay, who do
Yep.
you even trust? Because you just left your family. That's who you trust.
Yeah. Facts.
You trust them at all? Because some people don't trust their families either. Oh,
Yep.
now you in this new environment, and then what happens if you don't have a good season there? You got to move again, or you have a good season and you've outplayed that place, and now you have to move to a bigger school. So you're moving a whole lot, and you're uprooting a lot. So the thing that I look at, that's why I say you need a personal pastor. You need to have someone just like your skills coach that you work with 2, 3, 4 times a week. You need a personal pastor that you can call. I don't care where you move to. You can call that person, and they're not like you. You only talk to them on Sundays.
Yeah. Facts.
The pastor of your main church, that's cool, but that person is typically not going to have the time to be able to really teach you and walk you through your growth process, because that's not their role. Okay, that was their role before there was a pastor. So you're not really getting that interaction with the youth ministries. You're not really getting that interaction with the young people's ministries and stuff, because you're moving so much, and everywhere you go, you got to figure it out. But if you have someone that from the time you are like a young person, like a teenager, all the way on through, you have to pray for the Holy Spirit to reveal that person to you, and
Yeah.
then and once that person reveals themselves, I mean that's a big chunk of the battle right there.
Game changer. Game changer. And that man, as you were talking, man, I think you touched on something, man, that I kept thinking about it. It was like this the movement, right? That movement, because there's always a pattern of where you're gonna transition from one place to the next. But as you transition, it's like, what are you bringing with you?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, what do you bring? It's like, we can kind of relate it to basketball, right? Well, can you take your game and you're taking your game and you're placing your game in all these different teams, with these different organizations, these different cities. What does your game look like? So what really getting to is, what is your foundation? Right. And what you're saying is so important, because the problem that we don't have, I think, just, enough in athletics per se, is we're not creating enough infrastructure for these athletes to be able to maintain and keep a consistent dialogue, a consistent dosage of mentorship, the consistent dosage of discipleship, or whatever that is, you know what I'm saying? Because because as you move up, a lot more exposure happens, right? And it's easier to get touched now more than ever. And what I mean by touch, it's easy to get access.
Yeah.
Now, through the gram, through Facebook, you got, hit the DM, right? In one point in time for us, it was our closest thing with Instagram was Facebook. And remember, Facebook, you had to have you had to have a college email. You know what I'm saying?
It was popping back then, man.
Listen, Facebook was rocking. Facebook was rocking back then, man. But now, man, it's literally, man, somebody can be thousands of miles away from you, and then boom, they can just get access to you. They can just touch you, right? And it don't even have to be physical touch, but they can touch you spiritually, enticing you to fall into those webs and traps. But like you said, man, there are a lot of places where, as in the athletic realm, the athletic world, where people are hungry for it. But like you talked about beautifully, we don't have those infrastructures in place, because as an athlete, naturally we're just looked at differently. And so some churches, like you said earlier, won't even address sin with athletes. And the reason being is because it's the association piece.
Yeah.
Right? It's that, man, we got Drake Reed at our church. He's a member of our church. Like this, let's kind of forget about the discipleship part, and let's just use his name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To draw more people to our congregation. Where go ahead.
Come on, man. I mean, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, go and flow. Go ahead and flow. You got it.
That going on, and you also have your privacy. So now that's the other fear that a lot of athletes have is,
Mhm.
I don't want to share too much with you, even though I'm suffering, even though
That's,
my family just died, even though I just found my girlfriend and sleeping with one of my friends, even though this, even though that, okay? I don't necessarily want to share that with you, because if you tell one person, everybody here is going to know that. Okay.
good,
No
man.
different than what I was talking about before. You miss a big shot, everyone on your case. Man, you don't want everybody to know your business like that. And
Right.
so everyone has held the confidence of people that do have that type of public spotlight on them. And so that's one of the things that one of the things that keeps a person in bondage, is because they don't feel comfortable sharing. And it might not even be that person in the church. It might be it might be somebody else who burned them, before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At
That's good.
that point, like they just more guarded, like, no, no, I don't want to share nothing. Meanwhile, you look up and you're 25 years old and you talk about mental health. Okay. You're 28 years old, you make $100 million, you talk about mental health and all this stuff. But it's like the person that could have helped you. Man, I tell you what, when I wrote these books, man, I'm telling you, when I started interviewing these pastors, especially the ones that I grew up knowing, I had no idea that they knew all of this stuff. No idea. Now, granted, I was a kid, and how would I? But it's like, man, I really didn't know what I had in front of me because I didn't ask.
Yeah. It's
Had
good.
I said something, had I feel comfortable saying something, then I could have avoided a lot of this nonsense. Okay. I didn't say anything. So people can't, it's not like a stamp is on your forehead that says, hey man, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. Okay. But I think one of the things that I've really been encouraging folks to do is to not only just speak up, man, but to make yourself available to be spoken to.
It's good.
because I can remember, and I was just talking to a small group about this the other day. Because like I said, it's a big disconnect with a lot of church members, okay, that didn't play sports, and church members that do,
Yeah.
okay. I remember being on a date, man, in college, okay, meeting my college sweetheart at the time, and it's like I'm trying to get this young lady to like me for me, see if like is she really digging me for me, or is she like just watching the games and stuff like that type of deal, right? So we go out to this restaurant, and I'm trying to keep a low profile, man. I mean, but how can you keep a low profile and it's the city that you play college ball in? So
Right.
the restaurant, man, and the waitress happens to be very nice looking, okay? Actually nicer looking than her. And I'm not tripping off of her, but I got eyes to see. The lady asked me to sign. She said, she says, "Oh my God, I didn't know it was you. I would ask you to I would ask you to sign my boob, but your girlfriend's sitting there." And so it's like, man, dang, why you have to say that?
That's tough. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how is this woman that I'm interested in, how's she gonna respond to that? Now she gonna probably be worried, like, man, what's happening when I'm not around? If they doing this when I am around, you got to be built different to date an athlete. You got to be way your mental toughness had to be on a whole nother stratosphere. And so
Buddy.
what I noticed is even dating, especially when I became one of the better players in the country, is you can't avoid it. You going out to the movies, somebody gonna come up and talk to you while you're on your date. You go
Yeah.
to a restaurant, somebody gonna come up and talk to you while you're on your date. You go to a theme park, somebody gonna come up and want to take pictures with you while you with your girlfriend, or even want to take pictures with you and your girlfriend.
Right.
Okay, so that's a whole nother ball game. So you really it's really a very tricky situation, man. That's why I said you got to have men and women of God that have
Yeah.
lived a similar lifestyle as you to really be hey, you need to do it this way. You need to do it that way. Because other than that, man, you just kind of figuring it out on your own and you taking your lumps in life. And it's tough, man. It's a challenge.
It is a challenge. It absolutely is a challenge, man. In that part, um, just understanding what that battle looks like. You know what I'm saying? And not just the battle of the flesh, but it's the battle of the spirit. You know what I mean? Really digging deep into understanding, how that really affects you and going back to the playbook and really, finding out and understanding your weaknesses. But like you said, when you don't have men and women of God in your circle, a lot of lessons that I learned, when I was in college, man, I learned just on my own because at the end of the day, mom and dad did, they gave me the best they gave me the best that they could. But then at the end, I had a taste of freedom.
Mm.
I had liberty and option to go do what I wanted to do because, like you talked about in college, you don't have curfew. You don't have, you're pretty much responsible for yourself at that point, right? So a lot of my shortcomings really just came from just wondering, you know what I mean? And as I was wondering, man, I lost on a lot of opportunity. I lost on a lot of time. I lost myself in the process, and but at the same time, I'm just conditioned and thinking like this is just how it's supposed to go. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm a college athlete, so I'm looking at it like this is just normal. You know what I'm saying? Like so, you know, dealt with 2, 3 chicks, and it is what it is. It's cool, right? But the whole time, like I'm trying to figure out like why am I tripping all of a sudden? Like I'm feeling irritable. Like my spirit just feels different. You know what I mean? And I'm not even really processing, what I'm really getting myself into. But a part of that was because of, not having that infrastructure when I left home. And then on top of that too, you said something that kind of stuck out to me too. When you have teammates, you have so many different walks of life, right? And we had a guy named Nate Thomas. Shout out my boy Nate. Nate was a devout Christian.
That's
Yeah, yeah,
that's my dude, man. What up, Big Nate?
yeah, for sure. What up, Nate? But man, Nate Thomas for our team, like he was that devout Christian. Like so he was that guy that was, man, he was in his word and he was, what I'm saying? He was going to fellowship, man. He was doing discipleship and and Nate was, man, I love Nate's spirit because it was bright, it was light, but also too, man, the way Nate lived, it convicted us. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna speak for me. It convicted me because like anytime, like Nate will hold me accountable. You know, like, man, that, you know, them demons inside of me was like, like, nah, just stay away from Nate, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to keep a distance from him, right? But the whole time, then too, I started having this like this eye to like watch him because my eye wasn't watching him for the right reasons. My eye was watching him to say, okay, I'm gonna see if he a Christian. I'm gonna see if he gonna fall short. You know what I'm saying? I'm waiting for him to miss that shot. I'm waiting for him to miss that game winner, so I can just say, you see what I'm talking about? See, look at you hypocritical, right? You know what I mean? So my eye wasn't even in the right, in the right space. But man, but little does he know, man, that the influence of him, like, being that devout Christian. And it wasn't like he was just, hey, look at me, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian. It's just like, man, the way he went about living and how he moved, even in the space of being in college, like, man, that was a seed that was planted in me. You know what I'm saying? And so, man, now coming back full circle is like, even just having that part, that was just enough for me to just get by and make it through college. You see what I'm saying? But like you talked about, man, if we can, really have these infrastructures in place, man, where these athletes can go to people, like myself, like yourself, women of God and women of faith, that men and women can, to lean in on and press into, and like I said, be vulnerable, because sometimes it's hard. It's hard to share with somebody that doesn't understand and know. So I think you make a good point with that as well, because be mindful and have discernment of who you give information to, because they'll take that information and run with that and gossip, right? Here we go. We lead to gossip, you know what I mean? And that's being sinful, so man, I think, man, what you stated was on point, bro. And I'm really just really blessed for this, man, because I think, man, what we're doing obviously is not to highlight us or whatever, but man, this is really just touching into a avenue, or touching into a lane where athletes now can be given information, but also too, man, there's a space where there's solutions that are going to be addressed with these questions and with these problems. You see what I'm saying? So because us being able to go through it in our respective careers and fields, and me as a basketball trainer, like mine came a little bit different. So being connected with these high profile athletes and getting access to all these different rooms, and in my mind, this is like, man, this is my my draft moment. You know what I mean? So like when I was able to to see Darius Garland get drafted, and Jordan Bone get drafted, and Brandon Miller get drafted, and then Rob Covington, who was the only HBCU player in the NBA at the time, he signed a $65 million contract being undrafted. And so, man, a lot of the different places and rooms and the people that I was connected to, I'm just thinking like, oh man, this is like this is me, this is my moment, right? And then I understand it, man, like everything that came with that, bro. It was, bro, it consumed me, and it consumed me fast. You know what I'm saying? And next thing you know, I'm wrapped up in this world where I got on these rose petal glasses, and I'm only seeing the world from just this bubbly view, but then not even realizing that if I take the glasses off, I really see how dark it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So man, I think, man, bro, this a blessing, bro. Nah, this is absolutely a blessing, man. I'm excited about the seeds that are gonna be planted through what we're doing, bro. Because, man, these athletes need it, bro. They really do.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I'm right there with you on that. The next thing I wanted to go on, man, and we're gonna have to do a part 2 or part 3 of this, man, because this
Me too.
tour, man, and we're gonna have to. I'm gonna invite some women athletes and women coaches and stuff on at some point as well, so we can get their take on it.
No
But
doubt.
but the other area, man, we just went over the roles of a man and a woman, and
Yep.
now, okay, what's the rules? Okay. And I think the first rule is not even the abstinence part. I think that comes later. The first rule is, equally yoked.
Yes.
That's something that everyone keep going over. And I think they talked about it a lot when we were kids.
Yep.
I think the older generation did a good job of explaining why. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go over 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 15. And it says, don't become partners with those who reject God. How can you make a partnership out of right and wrong? That's not partnership. That's war.
Mm.
Light best friends with dark. Does Christ rolling with the devil? Do trust and mistrust hold hands? So I mean that goes right there. I mean, you just if you're walking this Christian walk and you walking with Jesus and you going to church and you going to Bible study and you reading your Bible and you're doing all this stuff, someone who is not pursuing that is naturally going to think that you kind of strange, are you weird, are you
Yeah.
they're probably trying to put themselves above Christ, okay?
Right.
Because they're trying to get your attention. They're trying to pull you down a notch. And it might not be that they're a bad person, but they just don't know Christ like you do.
Right. Fact.
So I would imagine that's probably the main thing that's going on. And then Deuteronomy 7:3-4 says, "Don't marry them, don't give your daughters to their sons, and don't take their daughters for your sons. Before you know it, they'd involve you in worshiping their gods, and God will explode with anger, putting a quick end to you."
Mm.
So I didn't really understand that part because growing up in the States, we didn't really talk about other gods and stuff like that when I was a kid. Like that
Yeah.
was
Mm.
like 70-80% of people you knew was either a Christian or they said they was a Christian and they wasn't like talking about the things they're talking about now. It's a lot of stuff about spiritual warfare. There's a lot of talk about other gods and goddesses and all of this stuff. But the thing that really struck me was when I went overseas, when I left at 22, that's all I was getting was different gods and goddesses and stuff. And so
Mm.
it was things that I was totally unprepared for having grown up in the States, even going to the churches in the States, because most people ain't really traveled further than 2 or 3 hours out of their hometown. You
Facts.
know, like even growing up like in Clarksville, like if you in Clarksville and you go to like and you move to like Atlanta, that's like a big deal,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Facts.
like St. Louis, that's like a big deal. That's like a big trip for you. So moving to Australia, moving to France, moving to Italy, going all through West Africa and South America and stuff, going to these places, it's just stuff that you just quite frankly didn't really know was real. And so what ends up happening, and I can say this from an overseas perspective, is you go to a lot of places and Christianity is just simply not the top religion. It just simply isn't. And so coming from here is hard because you don't really have a lot of people that have lived that life that are necessarily Christians. And so
Yep.
you really need someone to break that down to you. How do you because you're going to date somebody. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people say is that like, well, you could just remain abstinent. Well, you're going to go your whole career as an athlete 10 years, 15 years, and you're not going to date and try to marry somebody. That's
Right.
just realistic, okay?
Yeah.
That's to an athlete that sounds like a joke, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how do you maneuver like that? Because the majority of the people you're going to be meeting are not going to be Christians. And then you can avoid it for a period of time, but the loneliness is going to kick in because not just you being lonely from not dating someone, you being lonely, your family's not there. Your friends that you grew up with is not there. The people
Mm-hmm.
are going to be watching your back and doing things. A lot of those people are not there. Now you're going to meet some new people, but they're also new people. So you still kind of, figuring them out.
Yep.
So the thing is, for me is these solutions, understanding the equally yoked part and why that's a problem. What you think about it?
Yeah, man, that portion is very vital. If you have someone with a different belief system as you, it's just going to be very, very hard. And that could be the greatest person in the world, right? But if their foundation and their core isn't in alignment with where you are or where you're trying to go, it's like really, man, fighting an uphill battle. And I think a part of that too may also come to a sense of pride, unless God has called you to deal with a particular person that may not be a believer. If you think that you're just going to force your belief on somebody and force them to, yeah, it's just, listen, in other words, man, you're trying to put yourself in the position of God, and that's just not going to work at all. You know what I'm saying? So that equally yoked portion is very, very, very vital, because you have somebody that understands and knows exactly where you are, that can meet you where you are, that knows how to identify, that knows when to push, that knows when to pull, that knows when to stop, that knows when to go. And it's almost kind of like, you being in symmetry with a backcourt, with your point guard, shooting guard, right? If your point guard and shooting guard ain't on the same page, or your point and your big, the point and the center not on the same page in pick and roll, and y'all not able to be in cohesion and unify, like you're gonna struggle. Your offensive efficiency is gonna struggle, right? But you always got a player, you always got somebody on your team that you ain't even gotta, we running the play, and all you gotta do is make eye contact. You know what I'm saying? Drake, me and you on the court, we get to us, we know each other's game so well, is that, man, I know where you want the ball, I know where your spots are, I know where you like to catch it. I know some of the plays that I'm a call for you to get you going. So now it's like we in such cohesion, we ain't even got to call the play out. We just make eye contact, or we got signals in place where you and I just bam, we're on the same accord. And that's what I think that's what a husband and a wife should be, in that same accordance. Because now, even if there is miscommunication, there's a way biblically that you can go about doing that, right? Yeah. But if you don't have a husband, or if you don't have a wife that is from that biblical foundation, like, of course, the dramatic emotions and feelings really start to plague and really take over the calmness. It takes over the self-control. It takes over, fruits of the spirit, right? It supersedes all of that, because they make it more of a personal touch, rather than understanding that you're designed to serve. You know what I mean? And so you want to be in that place of service as a man and a woman. So, man, being equally yoked, bro, is very vital, because I've been in some situations, man, where I've dealt with some women that dealt with me, who were, and at that time I was not in my faith. You know what I'm saying? I was in a place where I was in the world. They were biblically sound. They were biblically, they were women of faith, women of God, and they were moving in a direction that, quite frankly, that I just wasn't remotely close to. And God just had to snip my branch. You know what I'm saying? Because what I was gonna do was really be a detriment to them. You know what I mean? And I needed that, because that's what was one of the things that caused me to grow too, especially with wanting to be a husband. Like, well, I gotta make sure, if I wanna, I can't say I want a wife. I can't say I want a godly wife, I should say, if I'm not exuding that myself.
Yeah.
Because if I'm perpetrating and saying I want that, but then I'm acting and I'm living a different way, then I'm completely fabricating. I'm fabricating who I am. I'm fabricating. I'm, again, using God as an accessory. You know what I'm saying? Which is done a lot in our culture. So, man, that's important. And that equally, bro, is very, very important, though, for sure.
You're totally right, man. The thing that I noticed, now, as far as our age now, is the covering is messed up if you're not, if one person is not in alignment with Christ. So
Man,
you're not equally yoked, man. Like, it's Jesus, then it's the man, then the wife, then the kids. And
come
so
on.
if you're the man and you're not aligned with Christ, then your woman is, well, she's not even covered. And if you have kids, they're not even covered.
Facts.
You're not praying for them. You're not you don't see the importance of it. And so they're taking spiritual hits,
Mm.
not praying. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're not you messing up the chain, you messing up the hierarchy. And the same if you're the woman. If you're a woman and you're not abiding by God's standards and walking how Jesus is wanting you to walk, then
Mm-hmm.
the kids are suffering. Okay. Now the father can't fully do his role because the kids are being influenced, by the your ungodliness, basically. And so if either person is not in good standing or doing what they're supposed to do to try to be on point with God, being equally yoked, then it's going to be an issue for all parties involved.
Facts.
You know, I think the perfect example of that is in I'm gonna read it in a second. Is King Solomon,
Mm-hmm.
because he had all them different wives and concubines and stuff, and it really was the demise, the beginning of the demise of everything that was going on that God was building with them. And so from First Kings, excuse me, this is from First Kings 11, 1 through 13. King Solomon was obsessed with women. Pharaoh's daughter was only the first of many foreign women he loved: Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidionite, and Hittite. He took them from the surrounding pagan nations, of which God had clearly warned Israel. You must not marry them. They'll seduce you into infatuations with their gods. Solomon fell in love with them anyway, refusing to give them up. He had 700 total royal wives and 300 concubines, 1,000 women in all, and they did seduce him away from God. As Solomon grew older, his wives beguiled him with their alien gods, and he became unfaithful. He didn't stay true to his God and his father David, to what his father and David had done. Solomon took up with Ashtoreth, who the whore goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the horrible god of the Ammonites. So I'm not even really going to go too far to finish the rest of that, but the thing that we pretty much have taught when we were kids is Solomon had all these wives, I had all these women.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that's overlooked, I think, in our culture is, I mean, he basically he got with women that practiced other spiritual systems, and it destroyed his kingdom.
Mm.
So I mean, it's saying right here, like he took up with Ashtoreth, like that's a false god. Molech, that's a false god.
Yep.
He built altars for those women. He built evil altars for those women. So because of him being in a union with them, married and having sex with them, he's influenced or basically in covenant with what they're in covenant with. And
Right.
I think that that's an area that is not explained well. Like
That's
once you sleep with someone, that's a covenant,
yes. That's
and
good.
for the soul ties and stuff, and that has to be renounced and repented for. And then so people don't keep that into consideration. I know I didn't. I didn't
No.
know. Like they just say, don't sleep around, don't do this, don't do that. But I
Yeah.
think it's really the disconnect is you need to be like it's a whole lot of people in churches getting delivered right now. That's a lot of people that's falling out, that's got stuff going on with them because of somebody they dated having a good night, meeting them on a one night stand at the club, or they dated someone that actually really liked them and they were a decent person, but they just simply practice something else. So the Holy Spirit that's within you is fighting against the demonic beings that's coming from somebody else, or the Holy Spirit within you is also fighting the stuff that you were involved in prior to even meeting that person. So it's a lot of stuff going on. So I think that says a lot, man. The equally yoked part and how you need to be with somebody who's a believer, because that ultimately, even from the first wife, from Solomon being with the first wife that practiced an Egyptian religion, that set them apart, because even when you look at Moses and the whole Exodus thing,
Yep.
it was made very clear that the ways of the spiritual ways of the Egyptians was against God.
Yep.
So right away, you coming right out the gate with your first wife being against God, and that's just not going to work out.
Ain't gonna work out at all. 1000%.
So the next area I wanted to go on, man, and then we're gonna probably have to make a part two, man, because this is
Oh yeah, man, for sure. It's a man, but it's been man, listen, fantastic though, bro. It's been great though. Absolutely.
yeah, we're gonna cover this last one, and then we're gonna have a part two to this, man. I wanted to know what are some we covered that. What are some pitfalls that need to be avoided, or how you
Man,
how you avoid those pitfalls?
what are the pitfalls? Some pitfalls, I would say, man, just in terms of falling into those traps. One, you have to be honest with yourself. I'll just speak for me personally. For me, uh, I was honest in saying, man, I don't trust myself. So the moment I submitted to God and I said, listen, God, I don't trust me putting my pride or putting my flesh on the line, thinking that I am bigger. I'm bigger than you. I'm big enough to fight this battle on my own. So I had to just say, man, look, I don't trust myself. If I put myself in these situations, I know I'm gonna fall short. If I know that if I even go to that woman's door, we just read that in Proverbs, right?
Yeah,
And if you even go to the door, you're gonna fall. And for me, is if I even drive in, like I told you, Drake, like I told you, brother, man, if I even drive in the neighborhood, if I turn down the street, I just know me, right? I know what I'm capable of. I know what my flesh wants to lie into. I know what I want to dive into, right? So being honest with yourself, man, I think that's one way to avoid the pitfall. Now I'm gonna give a pitfall. I think one of the pitfalls is ego, is our pride, right? It's just like, man, everything that comes with, that attachment of, man, being, big man on campus,
Man,
being the franchise, like, you know what I mean? The prideful part of you carry yourself in an aura to where you feel like you're bigger than life, right? Man, all I got to do is I can go to the club. I got this section. I'm spending 10, 15, 20 bands or however, how much money you spend to get, to have a quote unquote good time at the club. And as I get to the club, I'm pointing, I'm looking at anything that looks good to my eye. I'm bringing them to my section. I got my homies with me. So like, I'm
yeah,
calling shots. You
your
know what I'm
mind,
saying?
in your mind, you winning.
Yeah, facts. I'm winning. So, man, pride is a huge pitfall. You know what I mean? It's a huge pitfall in falling into those traps, man. Because, man, I think about Genesis, and I think it was 14 when I forgot which chapter it was. With man, I don't went brain for it. Abram. Abram went to go save Lot, but even before that, it was when the king when the kings, I think the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, they were it's like five kings, they were fighting against Chedorlaomer. And as they were fleeing, they were falling. They talked about those pits. They were fleeing to the pit. They fell into the pits and they was running to the mountains. And some of them actually fell in the pits. So, but those men, like just in aspect of, man, the way how we uh we trap ourselves into the life. Let's just use basketball. We trap ourselves into that life of, okay, here's the round ball. Here's everything that comes with the round ball. You get the money, you get the lifestyle, you get the women, you get the the drugs, you get all these different things, right? But there's an attachment that comes with each one, right? And pride, of course, I think is a common denominator between each of those components, right? I think another way of avoiding the pitfall is, going back to when you're being honest with yourself, is don't put yourself in trap zones. So going back to what I said earlier, look, if I know I'm weak, I'm weak, I know I can't dribble left, I'm not
Man,
left. I'm just going, man, Drake, I'm gonna pass it to you, bro. Like, take the rock out of my hand, because if I know I try to use my left, I'm turning it over, right? So if I know I'm weak in an area, like I'm not gonna put myself or put others in compromising positions to where it's easier for me to fall short.
yeah,
And so if I can be smart about how I strategize and how I move. Okay, Lord, listen, yeah, I think it says First Peter 5:7, to cast all your burdens, cast all your anxieties onto him, because he cares for you. So when
yeah,
I get moments where I feel my thoughts, and I feel my flesh kind of leaning in towards lust, leaning in towards man, man, you know what? I ain't seen her in a long time. She just scrolled across my feed, man. Let me just shoot her a text, man. I'm like, Lord, I do want to say this too, Drake, man. I think this is the real part about Jesus right here. Like, you talk about yoke, being equally yoked,
yeah,
and his burden is light. His yoke is easy. His burden is light. So one of the things that I know we both appreciate about our relationship with Jesus, man, is that we can really be honest.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like, I can I can be in that vulnerable space and moment, and I could be like, man, Jesus, look, like right now, I really want to have sex. I'm just going, because I rather give it, Lord, I'd rather give it to you than tell somebody else right now, right? So like, I can be honest and vulnerable and say, look, Lord, like I'm feeling weak right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really want to hit this young lady up, and I really want to, reconnect.
yeah,
I want to go down that road of fulfilling my desires of my heart and fulfilling my flesh. But man, I need you right now, because I know what I came from. I know what you brought me out of. I don't want to go down that route. I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to go down that route, because that one decision, I'm gonna pass a rock to you. But one decision, and this is really, I want the athletes really to kind of put this in context. Think about the number of years Drake, think about the number of seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years that you put in to your craft, that you put in all the amount of time, the time that you accumulated and you've clocked in for you to be the player that you were. And just think that one decision, which may last 30 seconds, 5 seconds, 1 minute, two, and it really don't take long for you to just lose it like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the man, the sincerity, the delicacy of knowing, man, if I make a decision, whether it be right or wrong, that decision is going to alter not just my future, but you mentioned this earlier about my generations behind me, my kids, and so it may not affect me initially, but then when my daughter grows up and she's having boy problems, she's dealing with men that just keep abusing her in so many different ways. And then I'm sitting there wondering, and then now I'm flustered and mad, like, what, why are you dealing with this dude? Well, okay, well, hold on, let me go back and look at what decisions I made.
Yeah, you gotta have that mirror up.
Gotta have that mirror up, right? So, man, I think, man, like that part of, so to answer the question, man, I think that part of realizing that I don't trust myself, and then if I do try to trust myself, I'm letting pride become a pitfall, a huge pitfall. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at with that.
I think for anyone that comes into success, not even just athletes, anyone I think pride is the easiest sin to get into.
Mm-hmm.
When you started talking about it, immediately I thought about my rookie year. So here I am. I'm just coming off being, averaging like 22-8 as a senior in college, playing in the college inside the tournament. I go to play in Australia, man. I'm feeding kangaroos. I'm dropping 30 on cats, man. I'm doing all this like I'm driving on the left side of the road, steering wheel on the right. I'm like, man, I'm doing some wild, some crazy stuff, some dope stuff, right?
Yeah.
You going to all the dope parties and all that, man, and you meeting beautiful ladies and all this type of stuff. Then I signed a contract to go play in France. Okay. So then I fly to a wedding, in the South, I fly to Tennessee to go to a wedding. Then I go train for a few weeks, to get ready to go to France. 3 weeks later, I'm in France. I'm out in Paris with some of my boys there that I play, some of my old teammates there. And so we in the club, man. We in this spot, man, and we just like, man, we in Paris. Like I'm like, dude, I was just feeding kangaroos like a couple
Mm.
months or two ago. Like I'm over here, like I'm outside. Like when they
Yeah.
came out and Jay-Z came out with the brothers in Paris, like I really was out there. I really had Gucci and Louis on. Like I really was out there.
Out
Like
there.
that
Come on.
song was really about what I was on at that point.
Yeah.
And we in there, man, and that song by Drake came out, the thank you. I know way too many people here right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at like who the y'all, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's really I was 23, they was 24 and 25, but that's really how our lives were. So it's like, okay, although we all were Christians at this particular time, okay, all of us, man, how do you reel that in?
Hey.
Because
Mm.
when I'm talking to ministers and stuff, and that's why I say you got to have someone that played because this is a whole different stratosphere.
Oh, different.
Like within 30 days, I was on 3 different continents. Okay. And it was able to get in whatever door I wanted to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So you need somebody that knows that's been through those doors too, or that understands that to be like, no. Because when you look at the guys that have the easier road as a professional, it's because their dads played or their moms played.
Yeah.
Because they know what not to do. They know what not to get involved in. But the folks that they're the first one to go to college in the family. They're the first one to be a pro in the family. They're the first one to make some money in the family. Whatever that might be, it's very challenging to not be prideful because it's like, man, you want to be successful. You're doing everything you can to be the best.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's different trains of thoughts. Like everything about being Christ-like is being humble. Okay.
Yeah.
Giving all glory to God about everything. But when you're playing ball, most people are not teaching you to be humble. Okay. They're teaching you to dominate. They teach
Ego.
you to
Facts.
they're teaching you to step on people's neck when you win. You know, they teach you all the stuff to basically make you it's to bring out the champion in you, but at the same time that can also bring out the monster in you at the same time. So it's like
Mhm.
um it's a very thin line, and I was talking to my pastors about this, and I was like, man, it's a thin line between confidence and cocky. You know, you really jumping over that line quite often as an athlete. And so the first lady was telling me, she said the way you can combat that is to be like David did. You fight for the Lord, you know. And
Mhm.
like, man, just her telling me that, it's like, man, I needed her to rewind. 19-year-old Drake, hey,
Man.
you going out here and y'all winning the OVC championship and becoming a player you artist, you know, you playing for God, okay?
Yeah.
You playing for God first. You're not even playing for your teammates first. You're not even playing for your family first. You're playing for God first. And I think that has to be ingrained into your psyche from an early age, if possible. And
Mhm.
then as you get older, if you're not in Christ and you come into Christ later, that has to be pumped into your psyche, just like you listening to certain music, just like you watching certain TV shows. That has to be constantly pumped into your mind because it's the renewing of your mind. Excuse me, it's the renewing of your mind, but at the same time, it's also like you're gonna get brainwashed into something else if you're not making a concerted effort to have that have your mind renewed. That comes with the reading, that comes with worshiping, that comes with listening to gospel music and those things. You have to totally saturate your environment in that, because if you don't, you're going to get everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just at the Suns game the other night, man. I mean, what song was decent that was played the whole game? you know,
Man,
you,
come on. Couldn't
you
I
know. Um,
say zero. It was zero for sure.
And so the temptation level is so high because I tell folks, I said, man, how are you going to here you are, you're 20 years old, you're 25 years old, you're 30 years old, however or 16, you have 5 to 8% body fat, okay? You're in tremendous physical condition. You looking great. Like everything about you looks great.
Yep.
You have your youthful exuberance. You're exciting to be around, you're exciting to watch. It's very everyone's coming to you. Everyone's coming to you. So you have to have a shield around you, not just even people, but you have to have a spiritual shield. You have to have people praying for you. You have to
Mhm.
have intercessors and stuff. It's a whole laundry list of things that you need to have outside of the sports part. Now I can tell you, man, I had a skills trainer, weight coach, mental coach, all that type of stuff. But when I think about it, it's like I really needed a personal pastor.
Start there. That's facts.
A personal pastor, you don't need the mental health coach. You don't need the what's the person sports
Yeah.
psychologist.
Facts. Hmm.
Personal pastor is going to do that, and they're going to be teaching you the godly way. Okay,
Yes.
so that you're not getting the bastardized version of what you need. You're
Right.
actually getting an offshoot of biblical principles that you really should just get the biblical principles and then go with that, and then you ain't got to deal with those other things. And
Absolutely.
so before we leave, I wanted to go over these four questions that you should ask yourself now that we've gone over the roles of a relationship and and about being equally yoked. And the ways to avoid certain pitfalls, okay, is I learned this from some of the guys in our men's group. And this is crazy because the first men's group I went to out here. And the first thing they said was, when you meet someone, the first thing you got to ask is, are they godly? Is this woman godly enough?
Yep.
And so I was like, dang, man, why didn't y'all tell me that I was 15? Why didn't you tell me I was 20? You
Yeah.
know, it just summed up so much of the foolishness I endured because that simple question I didn't ask. I didn't know to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question is, who sent this person? Jesus or the devil? Okay. So
Woo. Woo! Hey, you might need to repeat that question one more time. Make sure people hear that one, because I know, man, that's gonna really convict some people. Let's man, say that one more time. Say that one more time for them, brother.
So when you meet someone of interest, okay,
Mm-hmm.
who you got to ask yourself, who sent this person, Jesus or the devil?
Come on, come on.
That right there, man, that's gonna cut out all types of. And then here's the other thing on top of that they don't mention.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that Jesus didn't send them. Are you still going to tell them no?
Put my hood, man. We're gonna put the hood on for that one. Right there. We gonna end the we gonna man, listen. I'm finishing the whole episode with the hood on, because that's you going, hey, we going there. We gotta go there. Keep going, bro. We gotta go there.
The other two are a bit lighter, man, but they just as important. Does this relationship glorify God?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's pretty straightforward. So if
Yeah.
if it's a one nighter, if it's a you know that they're not really walking how you walk and all that, like it doesn't glorify God.
Mm-hmm.
And is this person an asset or a liability?
Mm.
And I think that kind of that's self-explanatory. I mean, is this person going to make your life better or worse?
Yeah.
Any level. Are they gonna make your life better spiritually? You're gonna bring you closer to God. They're gonna take you further away from God. They're gonna is this person good with their finances? Or would they be a good parent? You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
would they be a good spouse? You know, those type of things. Are they an asset or liability? So those are some of the things, man. But
Hey,
I think we got to the finish line for the day, man.
man, we did, man. Hey, that question, I ain't gonna lie though, brother. That number two, that question two, man, that's sticking. I hope that stick, man, and that's because that's a real question. Um, and that's more of a self accountability point too, because um, hey man, listen, Satan know the word too. You know what I'm saying? Satan know the word. Man, Satan, listen, demons bow before Jesus. You know what I'm saying? They know what time it is. But man, are you like you said, it's only two teams. You know, you playing for God or you playing for Satan? So that's a question, man, that's a really good question right there. And that's one of those heart to hearts right there. You know, you gotta really sit and marinate with that. You know what I mean? But man, we got to the finish line, man. And it's man, it's only first quarter, man.
It's a whole lot of stuff we didn't get into today because there's so much depth to this. But we're gonna have part three if we need to. But we're gonna build on it. You
Oh
know,
yeah, no question, man. I think we're gonna take our time with this, man. Man, make sure everybody just really marinate. Get the meat off the bone. I'm talking about don't even leave no meat on the gristle. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We gotta get every little tooth and natty, man. Like everything, we gotta get it.
yeah, man. Well, before we go, man, I just want to, thank God for giving us this opportunity to be on this channel, man. Lord, just please, for everyone that needs to see this video and that needs to get this type of advice, please see to it that they get to it and with no hindrances and Jamal and I, hey, we'll be around. We'll be around. Like if you get in touch with us, if you want to get see how we feel about certain things, the community that we really needed when we was players, we're developing that now. And
Yeah,
so add us on IG, add us on Instagram. My IG is Coach Reed Today, and as well as CA Worldwide Alliance. That's for Christian Athletes Worldwide Alliance. You can also find that on Facebook. We got a Facebook page, a Facebook group. So feel free to get with us, man.
for
What's your IG, Jamal?
Yeah, man, you can get with me, man, on IG at JMR Basketball. The same goes for X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook as well. So man, that's what we're here to do, man. We are here to be a resource and outlet to you guys and ladies as well. Man, just like I said, I think this is important. This is imperative. Really building that community, especially amongst the athletic world and that athletic base. So man, we excited about what the Lord is going to do with this platform. And again, as my brother, man, beautifully said, man, this is not about myself. This is not about him. And this is simply all glorifying Jesus Christ, man. And this is the main thing. And we want to help lead athletes to a path, man, where you do not have to be conformed by this world, but that your mind is renewed and is renewed by the Lord, renewed by the Holy Spirit. And I'm just excited, man, to see what the Lord gonna do with this for sure.
No doubt, man. Well,
Yes,
God, I'm excited about it as well. And that's it for tonight. But be looking out for part 2. We're gonna be with y'all soon. God bless.
Yes, sir. God bless. Peace.
Message. Lord knows that I'm heaven sent. Thank God for the future, past, and the present tense. It's newfound love for my Father God. Got the devil tense, and I've been dodging bullets and crosses. I know the devil sin. I've been watching.
Everything stems back to the Father. I remember the scripture says, you know, even if your mother and father forsake you, that I will take you in. And that's something that I've been holding on to since I was a young kid, realizing that even in high school, you know, growing up without my dad, I had a heavenly Father that I could talk to.
He gave me was evident. My soul belong to God, ain't no selling it. Plus your boy a star. The devil can't ride but the door jar. Demons, they trying to stop me. Throw me off, angels watching, I know they are, huh? They say the door's locking. I serve a God, it's like a